It was a scene of chaos along Bloor Street West last night, a running fireworks battle with plenty of bystanders watching in shock. Good evening. Fireworks were even shot at police cruisers as officers tried to break up the chaotic scene.
This all happened on Bloor Street West near Manning Avenue. That's where we find CTV's Raheem Ladani tonight with more on this story. Raheem.
Michelle and Nathan, good evening. There are still fireworks littered on the ground here. It's the aftermath of what was a wild and dangerous scene last night, and this was not the only fireworks-related incident in the city. A fireworks shootout up and down Bloor Street West. The chaos seen and smelt from blocks away.
We could smell the thermite from our window, like it was crazy.
Lewis says he and his girlfriend were trying to get ice cream around 9 Monday night, but they couldn't safely walk to the store with Roman candles flying across the sidewalk.
We saw someone dump out a backpack and like everyone ran and grabbed a bunch and then they all ran down the street. But it was pretty crazy. We were just nervous they were going to shoot one at our window.
Police say around 700 people were enjoying the long weekend weather at Christie Pitts Park. When the sun went down, the crowd spilled onto the street.
When I looked out the window, it was just like kids running up and down, like shooting each other with fireworks, shooting at people, and a lot of smoke.
Video also shows fireworks aimed at police cruisers. Officers did confiscate some of the fireworks, but allowed the dangerous disorder to continue for around 2 hours and say they made no arrests.
And the police were here, but their presence seemed more for crowd control than anything else.
No injuries were reported, while witnesses say a similar situation unfolded last year. While in 2018, a teenager suffered serious injuries after a group of people were seen shooting fireworks at each other.
Second year in a row that it's happened. And, still there's, I want to say, no preventative measure in place to really stop it from happening again.
Just as the area was being cleared, there was another fireworks incident near High Park at Lakeshore Boulevard West and Parkside Drive. Police say this time there was an altercation between two groups who were pointing fireworks at each other, and a man in his 30s was stabbed. One victim was taken to hospital with stab wounds to his back. A second took themselves to the emergency with what's described as non-life-threatening injuries. Police say one man has been arrested. Those hearing about what happened the day after are split over the police response.
Toronto Police Service is not really one, to be honest, and we give them a lot of money. So they could be doing a better job, that's for sure.
I think it's difficult with enforcement because I feel like teenagers and young people are going to do it regardless. Like even where I grew up in the suburbs, people were always getting fireworks and doing really stupid things with them.
A reckless act that can quickly escalate. I can also tell you that the person that police did arrest is 18-year-old Julius Bromfield of Toronto. He's been charged with assault. Investigators are still searching for 3 other male suspects. You can find their descriptions on our website. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Raheem. Still ahead on CTV News tonight, just one day after a new national action plan on auto theft was launched, there's been yet another violent car theft. Mike Walker will be live with details in just a few minutes.
But first, nearly 12,000 transit workers with the TTC are one step closer to strike action tonight after the Ministry of Labor issued a no-board report.
That means members of ATU Local 113 could go on strike as early as Friday, June 7th. But it doesn't mean they will. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live to explain where things stand. Natalie.
Yeah, exactly, Nathan. June 7th is the date that commuters will be watching in their calendar. That is the date when nearly 12,000 frontline TTC staff could legally walk off the job. However, talks do still continue, both sides still at the bargaining table. The union, though, saying make no mistake, they will strike if they have to. The clock is now ticking toward a Toronto transit strike, job action that would effectively shut down the TTC and throw the commutes into chaos.
I hope they don't, because the City of Toronto needs the TTC.
I think there's enough congestion in the city as it is, and with no subway service or TTC service, it's just going to make it worse.
At the end of the day, it's like if they want to strike, they feel that's what's best for them and their lives. I support that.
ATU Local 113 represents 11,500 operators, collectors, maintenance workers, and other frontline staff. The two sides have been bargaining since February. Today, the provincially appointed conciliator issued a no-board report, starting a 17-day countdown to possible job action.
We are going to see a strike if the TTC does not provide the resources in order to resolve the issues that we have at the table, including our job security, benefits, and our wages. Obviously, we will be in a strike position and exercise our right to strike.
The TTC telling CTV News in a statement, past experience tells us that if there is a labor disruption with ATU Local 113, there will be service impacts. What exactly those impacts could be will depend on the extent and nature of the disruption and are not yet known. The TTC values the important work that all our employees do every day to deliver safe and reliable service.
We came to work during the pandemic. We came to work when other people could not provide for themselves and make sure there's a safe, dependable transit for everybody throughout the pandemic or any sort of crisis. We're always there. We're the eyes and ears of the city. Unfortunately, it's not reflected in the bargaining table.
I'm confident that a deal can be reached. I am, hopeful that they will be able to reach something because both of them are at the table continually. I would be less confident so if there had been a breakdown in negotiations and neither side was talking to each other. That's not the case here.
All eyes now on the negotiations and the possibility of a strike starting June 7th. The union is stressing that 98% of its members indicated support for job action in a strike vote. They do still, however, have 17 days to come to a deal. Reporting live at TTC headquarters, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. A live look at the city where it sure feels like summer. The heat and humidity are here. The clouds look to have pushed out. What a May stretch we're on. Let's bring in Jessica Smith with a look at the current conditions. I'm sure some folks are just loving this. Others maybe think it's a bit too hot.
It is a little challenging when it gets this hot. We're in that transitionary period where we're switching over from that kind of spring warmth to that summer heat, and the humidex value becomes quite the issue. Temperature-wise, it has been warm throughout the day, popping up some thunderstorms east of the city, but for the most part, we've stayed relatively dry. The humidex values as we get into the end of our day, we're still feeling into the mid-30s. Windsor, for example, feeling like 36. Through Hamilton, it feels like 34, and it only gets warmer as we settle into the summer season. In that southwestern corner, we have some special weather statements for the heat as we get in towards the day tomorrow, and it's going to stay warm. Through the island, through Pearson right now, it's not so bad if you have AC. Tonight, dropping down to 17, well above seasonal. Your full forecast coming up right now. Over to Nathan.
One man is dead, dozens more injured after a plane bound for Thailand dropped 1,800 meters in just minutes. We'll have more on the tragic turbulence incident in minutes.
South Simcoe police say the two people found dead inside a Bradford home died as a result of intimate partner violence. Police were called to a home on Deputer Crescent on Friday evening to check on the well-being of the occupants inside. When police entered, they found the bodies of a man in his late 60s and a woman in her late 50s. Investigators say it appears several days before police arrived, the man killed his wife and then took his own life. Police say the couple had lived in Bradford for decades, and there had been no prior police calls to that residence.
It started in Toronto and ended in Markham, yet another violent car theft.
This comes just a day after the federal government announced a new national action plan on auto theft, a plan some say doesn't go far enough. CTV's Mike Walker is live tonight with more. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, Toronto police say the carjacking happened at a home here in the Yonge and Steeles area earlier this morning. A short time later, police with both Toronto and York Region located the stolen vehicle and made the arrests. A Mercedes SUV is loaded onto a Toronto police flatbed in Markham, where police tracked down and arrested suspects connected with a carjacking early this morning. People waking up to officers from Toronto and York Region swarming their neighborhood in search of the suspects.
A man running and the policeman chasing.
Toronto police say the suspects broke into a home in the Yonge and Steeles area around 5:30 this morning and stole the vehicle. They say one person was home at the time but was not injured.
Like 5 a.m. is like where people actually starting to get out, but man, this is crazy. But like I'm actually glad that we actually made some progress to actually make the arrest.
Police say the arrests were made in the Warden and Denison area after a foot pursuit, approximately 10 kilometers away from where the vehicle was stolen. This man, who didn't want to be identified, said he was alerted by police sirens around 6 this morning and the K9 unit knocking on his door.
So they wanted to check anybody hiding on the backyard.
This latest incident happening less than 24 hours after the federal government announced a new action plan to combat skyrocketing auto thefts across the country.
This is an issue that is touching the lives of far too many Canadians.
That includes tougher penalties, sharing of intelligence between all levels of government and police, and more tools to scan shipping containers before stolen vehicles are shipped out of the country.
The auto industry and the big expensive cars that are now out there and in droves that have ways of defeating the security systems in them have caused a problem for police and for homeowners and for car owners.
Former OPP Commissioner Chris Lewis says the measures announced by the government will help, but more resources, especially for the RCMP, are needed.
They've been really noticeably absent the last few years through no fault of their own. They don't have the resources to keep up. For more commitment to investigating organized crime will all help.
Toronto police revealed that in 2023, a vehicle was stolen every 40 minutes in the city. This latest incident has left neighbors on alert.
It's scary. I mean, I was not in it, in the summertime, we were not locking the doors before. Now I actually lock the door, even though we're inside the house.
Now, at this point, Toronto police have not yet revealed how many suspects they arrested and the charges they are facing. I'm told that police will be updating this investigation tomorrow. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Toronto police are asking for your help following a sexual assault earlier this month. It happened May 2nd near Markham and Eglinton in the afternoon. Investigators say a man and woman were riding a TTC bus and the man sexually assaulted her before getting off the bus. The suspect's described as between 50 and 60 years old, 5'6", with a medium build. He was wearing a brown jacket with fur. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Notorious serial killer Robert Pickton's in critical condition in hospital tonight after being attacked at a Quebec prison on Sunday.
The BC man is serving a life sentence for murdering 6 women, though he was accused of killing many more. CTV's John Woodward has more.
That's Robert Pickton admitting to an undercover officer in 2002 that he was one shy of 50 murders of vulnerable women in Vancouver's downtown east side. Many Indigenous, many drug users, so many Pickton doesn't appear to recognize the photos of them in a police interview.
I don't know. There's so many people coming out of my face, I don't know.
Pickton faced 27 first-degree murder charges. The Crown proceeded on 6. The evidence produced after an extensive search of his family's ramshackle farm in the Vancouver suburb of Port Coquitlam. His sentence, life in prison, most recently in Quebec's maximum security Port Cartier institution. On Tuesday, the Correctional Service of Canada said, "We can confirm that inmate Robert Pickton was involved in a major assault on May 19th. This assault did not involve any of our staff. The safety and security of institutions is paramount, and an investigation into what occurred is currently underway." Police in Quebec saying the 74-year-old Pickton is clinging to life in hospital. The suspect, a 51-year-old man who is still incarcerated.
Another inmate who had a history of assaulting people, had been in segregation for a while and had been released onto this specialized unit, and that he attacked Mr. Pickton.
Pickton was convicted in the death of Marnie Frey.
It's not a big, oh, thank God. There's so many more questions that have to be answered.
In telephone interviews from prison, Pickton hinted at a much wider story.
If I got on a stand or something, I could blow the whole thing apart.
But he chose not to take the stand. An inquiry into the case showed how few protections there were for his vulnerable victims, as well as some police mistakes that let him kill for longer. Pickton penned a book which briefly sold on Amazon. That prompted BC to enact a law against offenders profiting from their crimes. Frey says his lawyer told him the attack left Pickton brain dead, a sign his life sentence may be close to an end. John Woodward, CTV News.
An investigation into sexual misconduct allegations against the Canadian Cardinal has found no evidence connecting him to the alleged crimes. Gerald Lacroix is the Archbishop of Quebec City. In January, he was named in a class action lawsuit. The alleged touching took place between 1987 and 1988, when the unnamed female plaintiff was 17. A retired Quebec Superior Court was mandated by the Vatican to look into the allegations. Andre Denis said today he's unable to say whether or not the alleged act took place, but he could find nothing to substantiate the allegations. And there's no evidence to justify a canonical trial.
What I concluded is that looking at the archives of the diocese and the archives I've read and all the people I've met, nothing can be relied to the plaintiff and Cardinal Lacroix.
The Archbishop has denied the allegations. Denis says his report is incomplete because the complainant has refused to take part in his investigation. But if she changes her mind, he would ask the Vatican to resume the investigation.
On Parliament Hill, the official opposition is once again calling for the Speaker of the House to resign. It is due to what the Conservatives say is another display of partisan behavior. A post on the Liberal Party website promotes an event involving Speaker Greg Fergus. The event details include a political attack on Tory leader Pierre Poilievre. The Liberals say the language is standard for events put on their site and was auto-populated. The Speaker's office says the text was not approved by them, and his riding association did not know the event had been posted.
In the Middle East, Israeli forces moved deeper into Jabalia in northern Gaza today. Residents say a hospital was struck and residential areas were destroyed. In the south, the United Nations has suspended food distribution in Rafah because of a lack of supplies and insecurity. It also said no aid trucks entered in the past 2 days via a floating pier set up by the U.S. for sea deliveries. The World Food Program is also running out of food for central Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fleeing Rafah have sought shelter. The World Health Organization is calling on Israel to lift restrictions on aid into the territory. It says the primary pipeline for emergency medical supplies from Egypt has been cut off.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is hitting back against attempts to seek warrants for his arrest on war crimes in Gaza.
Yesterday, the prosecutor for the International Criminal Court announced there was evidence both Israeli and Hamas leaders committed crimes against humanity. CTV's Judy Trin reports on Canada's reaction.
As famine takes hold and starvation spreads in Gaza, Israel is launching diplomatic attacks on a new front against the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court.
This guy is out to demonize Israel. He's doing a hit job. He's creating a false symmetry between the democratically elected leaders of Israel and the terrorist chieftains.
No foot soldier, no commander, no civilian leader. No one can act with impunity. Nothing on earth can justify willfully depriving human beings.
Karim Khan is seeking warrants for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, along with 3 architects of the October 7th attacks, Yahya Sinwar, Mohammed Diab, and Ismail Haniyeh. The Palestinian delegation in Canada applauds the calls for arrests, but objects to a comparison of scale.
Israel has committed atrocities that amount to 40,000 people being slaughtered.
The ICC's chief prosecutor says there's evidence Netanyahu and Gallant are directing attacks at civilians and using starvation as a weapon of war. Delays continue in transporting food, fuel, and water. Humanitarian aid has to be airdropped and brought in from the sea.
We have asked and continue to ask for plenty of access. We're getting more, but it's still not enough. We need to get in at scale to be able to avert famine.
All parties must make sure that they abide by international law, including international humanitarian law. We've been calling all parties to do so for months now.
It will take about 2 months for a panel of judges to decide if warrants should be issued. If so, Benjamin Netanyahu could be arrested if he travels outside of Israel to a country where the ICC has jurisdiction. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
In Iran, 5 days of mourning have begun following the deaths of the country's president and 7 other people. Thousands walked beside the caskets in the holy Shiite Muslim city of Qom today. The bodies were taken to Tehran later in the day. Tomorrow, a funeral presided over by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini will turn into a procession as well. President Ibrahim Raisi was killed in a helicopter crash Sunday. Iran's foreign minister and 7 others also died.
A horrific scene on a flight from London, England, bound for Singapore after turbulence caused the plane to drop 1,800 meters in just minutes.
1 passenger died, dozens more injured. CTV's Heather Wright has the details.
First responders carry injured passengers off a Singapore Airlines flight as ambulances take them to hospital. More than 70 people were hurt after the plane, traveling from London to Singapore, hit severe turbulence. A man in his 70s was killed. One passenger says anyone not wearing a seatbelt was launched immediately, including the cabin crew.
every single cabin crew person I saw was injured in some way or another, maybe with a gash on their head.
The force so strong people's heads dented the overhead bins, oxygen masks left dangling from the ceiling.
When you hit severe turbulence like that, the first thing is you go up and you hit the overhead bins, and that's where the injuries, get head injuries, neck injuries, back injuries.
The plane was diverted to Bangkok, Thailand, where tents were set up on the tarmac to triage the injured according to severity. 6 passengers have critical injuries, while 23 are considered medium, including a flight attendant. Experts say it's likely the plane hit what's called clear air turbulence, which is difficult to avoid because it doesn't show up on the weather radar in the cockpit.
You can't see it, you can't forecast it. It's just where these air masses collide and causes some severe updrafts and downdrafts.
Injuries caused by turbulence are rare. According to the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States, between 2009 and 2021, 146 passengers and crew members were seriously injured because of turbulence. The general manager of the airport in Thailand says the person who died is a 73-year-old British man. He says he may have had a heart attack, but that will need to be confirmed by an autopsy.
The doctor have to investigate his body.
In a statement, Singapore Airlines offered its deepest condolences to the family of the man killed, while Boeing, the manufacturer of the airplane, says it is ready to help in any way it can. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto. Closing arguments are expected to begin next week in Donald Trump's so-called hush money trial in New York. The defense rested its case today.
A great case was put on. There is no crime. In fact, I just got almost every review that's been done of the case so far. And as they say, there is no crime. This should have never been brought. It should be dismissed before you even have a verdict.
The former U.S. president did not testify. After more than 4 weeks, the jurors have been sent home. They will not be required back in court until next Tuesday. Trump is accused of falsifying business records to cover up an alleged payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. She said there was a sexual encounter with Trump. He denies that.
Coming up, Canada's inflation rate slows to a 3-year low. What this means for you, the consumer, and a potential interest rate cut next month.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the vast majority of Canadians own a smartphone, and now more of us text than talk. It's why scammers are sending messages trying to steal your money. A mother thought she was helping her daughter and was scammed out of $2,500. I'll have my reports just ahead.
And we are looking at, well, a lot of pollen out there. You noticed it early on today. You saw it kind of flying around in the air. And if you live with allergies, it has been challenging over the past few days. Even with the rain tomorrow, it'll still be tricky. Coming up, a full look at your long-range forecast. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
About 95% of Canadians own a smartphone, and every day you may receive dozens or even hundreds of text messages.
Scammers know this, so more and more they're targeting smartphones with scam texts, otherwise known as smishing. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, most of us have received scam text messages before and know not to open them. But scammers are getting sneakier. A mother wanting to help her daughter was just scammed out of $2,500.
I just thought it was her. Thought she was in trouble, needed to help her.
Erin McInerney of Ajax got a text message 3 weeks ago that appeared to be from her daughter asking for assistance.
So the text came through as a text from my daughter with her first name spelled properly. And it's an unusual name.
Text messages to McInerney claimed her daughter's phone was broken, so she had a new one and a new number that wasn't set up with the bank yet. She asked to borrow money to pay some bills.
So she asked me to do that for her, and she would reimburse. So that is what I did.
After McInerney e-transferred $2,500 and didn't hear anything from her daughter, she called her original number to find out her daughter knew nothing about the messages and that she had been scammed.
It was $2,500 that I let go to who I thought was her. and it wasn't.
We all use text messaging, and of course, cyber criminals know this, so they're coming after us on the tools and technologies like text messaging where we spend our time.
Tech expert Carmi Levy says criminals are scouring through social media, looking for names, numbers, and addresses, anything they can use to customize a fake text message to make it seem more believable. He advises never send money to anyone on the basis of a text.
Call the person from whom it seems to be coming. Ask them, did you text me, and ask for money. If the answer is no, you know that it's a scam attempt.
McInerney was with Royal Bank and a request for a refund was denied. A spokesperson told CTV News, "We remind clients to take precautions to ensure they are dealing with a trusted source when transferring or receiving funds." McInerney wanted to warn others about this scam.
They work on your emotions using your children against you, like who wouldn't want to help their child?
And anytime you get a text, call, or email from someone asking for money or your personal information, it should be a red flag. Be cautious and never send that type of information unless you're sure it is a trusted source. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, summer has unofficially begun. You can feel it, and I've been waiting all year for this. This is the weather that I love.
We're all in a great mood, but I feel like we cannot go back now. Now we're in it.
Yeah.
People are wearing shorts. They brought them to the front of their closets.
I switched out. I was looking for shorts this weekend. It was just getting that warm outside. And we have humidity that we're contending with. You have the actual temperature and you have the percentage of relative humidity. You combine those numbers and that's how we get the humidex value. And it is high as we head throughout the day today and the rest of the week. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Some folks like the humidity, some don't. But if you have a boat, maybe you don't care. It's nice outside, right? What a beautiful shot of the city. When you're down by the water, it is a little bit cooler. There's a tiny bit of a lake breeze, but overall, everyone's feeling the heat as we head throughout the day today. If you don't have AC, it's going to be challenging tonight. We're looking at a really warm evening ahead of us, and those humidex values are not going anywhere. Right now, we're at 28. It feels like 33 through Windsor. It feels like 35. Even through parts of northern Ontario, we're holding the warmth. Sault Ste. Marie feeling like 27. We are looking at some special weather statements for the heat as we head into the day tomorrow into that southwestern corner. A few storm watches and warnings through eastern Ontario. Those are dropping now, but we could see more pop up as another round of rain rolls through tomorrow. Temperature-wise tonight, we should be around 10 degrees. We'll be at 17. It is extreme in areas down towards, say, London. They should be at 9. They'll be at 20 for the low tonight. So even though it's overnight, still check on the vulnerable people in your life because the heat can be challenging throughout the day and into the evening as well. Tomorrow, 27. Feeling like 32. We have the right recipe with all that humidity for some pop-up thunderstorms in the middle of the day, and that's what we can expect. There's the rain that we saw kind of bookending different parts of southern Ontario today. It pushes out as we head through the overnight. The bulk of the low tomorrow is in northern Ontario, but we're going to see a line of showers come down, extending off that initial low, bringing the likelihood of some midday messy weather. Tonight, though, it's not bad if you wanted to get out for an evening walk. Timing it all out tomorrow. We start off sunny. There's that midday shower activity, the risk of pop-up thunderstorms. But by about 3 o'clock, it's gone through 6 p.m. The sunshine coming back up before the day is all said and done. Into Thursday, sunshine. Friday, sunshine. We are into that real summer-like weather, although the season doesn't officially begin until June. Into our day tomorrow, again, that pop-up thunderstorm in the afternoon, but it's going to feel so hot. As we get into Thursday, Friday, more consistent sunshine. We don't really see kind of a cool down, so to speak, just back towards seasonal until the weekend. Monday looking a little cooler, but again, it's just still 18 degrees. But overall, as we wrap up the month of May, we're looking at some real summer-like weather. Nathan, I'll send things back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Also tonight, an urgent call to fix a system that is failing our seniors. A new report sheds light on the number of seniors who are homeless and not getting the physical or mental supports they need inside shelters.
A new report indicates more people than ever over the age of 50 are experiencing homelessness.
But as our health reporter Pauline Chan explains, experts say the system is not set up to meet their particular needs.
There are roughly 7,500 people who are living on the streets in Toronto.
Of that, the proportion of older adults who are aged 50 and above was about 36%.
And Dr. Gillian Alston says that number is rising.
And growing at quite alarming rates, and we're seeing the rise in the number of individuals who are experiencing homelessness in later life, growing actually more than what we would expect just from the population aging.
The authors of the CMHA study looked at homelessness across Canada.
We know that the housing crisis, affordability are way up there in terms of major causes of why we're seeing this.
But in addition to Canada's lack of affordable housing, approaching retirement age is a time of transition.
This is a time where many individuals are transitioning to a fixed income, which is often insufficient to actually meet, the daily cost of living.
And aging itself brings on health problems like dementia or mobility issues that may affect one's income and housing. Alston says few shelters can accommodate the needs of older people.
First and foremost, there's a real need for housing solutions for older adults, and not just increasing the supply, but making sure that the supply is in tune.
Many have low cots for beds, difficult for those with mobility challenges.
And if that individual has mobility difficulty or dementia that maybe leads to some wayfinding difficulties or complex medical needs that require a place to store medications, you can imagine how hard it is for individuals to actually, meet their day-to-day health and well-being needs.
Preventing homelessness should be a priority, but for those living in shelters, policies and surroundings should take into account the medical and social needs of older people. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
According to Stats Canada, the inflation rate is down, falling slightly last month.
But as Beth McDonnell reports, it doesn't mean consumers are feeling any relief.
It's hard for real estate agent Arun Savanadan to give his clients looking to rent a home these days good news. Inflation continues to cool, but securing a place to live in the GTA is expensive.
Yeah, the numbers are awesome. It's good to hear those numbers, but I don't see a difference. People are still struggling.
In 2022, Canada's inflation rate hit a 40-year high, 6.8%. This March, it was down to 2.9%, down again in April to 2.7%.
I don't see any prices coming down. Gas prices coming down? I don't think so. Affordability is still probably the same or worse.
Driving the deceleration, says StatsCan, is food, including fresh and frozen beef, beverages, bakery and cereal products, along with fruit, nuts, and seafood. Over the last 3 years, the cost of food increased by more than 21%. And so far, Jason Rossi's grocery bill isn't getting easier to pay.
As a shopper, as a parent, as a taxpayer, I'm crushed. It's brutal. So I got 2 kids and they're eating me out of house and home. I can't make ends meet, and I make good money. I'm a civil servant and I'm working hard, but it's not enough to get around anymore.
The big question now is, will the Bank of Canada lower interest rates in June and ease up the pressure on people paying for a mortgage, buying a vehicle, or borrowing money?
I think at this stage, it's still a toss-up.
Jean-Paul Lam is a former assistant chief economist at the Bank of Canada. Lam says while the data is encouraging, he believes the bank wants to see inflation trend down even further, which is being pushed up in part by a tight labor market and wages, with affordability a ways off.
If you look at average rent prices jump by 8%, mortgage rates, we know that about half of Canadians still have to renew their mortgage, and they're going to do that at a much higher rate. If you take shelter and food, those are the 2 biggest components of expenditure. And we haven't seen much relief until now, and that's why Canadians are still struggling and will continue to struggle in the next coming months.
Many consumers, meanwhile, are looking for relief.
More difficult is payment, the mortgages and bill payment.
If stores could reduce the prices of certain products, and even if taxes could be reduced.
To make life less expensive and more manageable. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
After the break, communication and accountability. Craig Berube sends a message to his team and Leafs Nation as the new bench boss is given the reins.
New tunes from a Canadian icon.
Jim Cuddy has some new music, and he's also taking it on the road. It's something we'll talk to him about on the next CP24 Breakfast.
Where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
When I look out the window,
It was just like kids running up and down, like shooting each other with fireworks, shooting at people, and a lot of smoke.
Updating our top story, some scary moments for people along Bloor Street West last night as a running firework battle broke out on the street. Video from the scene shows fireworks being shot in the streets as well as near police cruisers. Toronto police say no arrests were made, but officers did confiscate some of the fireworks.
We are going to see a strike if the TTC does not provide the resources in order to resolve the issues that we have at the table.
More than 11,000 TTC workers are one step closer to strike action tonight. The Ministry of Labour issued a no board report today, which had been requested by HEU Local 113. While it doesn't mean there will be a strike, it means the union could strike as early as June 7th. A statement from the TTC's CEO says if there is a labor disruption, there will be service impacts, but what those impacts may be aren't known yet.
Every single cabin-crew person I saw was injured in some way or another, maybe with a fracture in their head.
And one man has died and more than 70 people were injured after a plane flying from London to Singapore encountered severe turbulence. 6 passengers have critical injuries. It's believed the plane may have hit clear air turbulence, which is difficult to avoid as it doesn't appear on weather radar.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you ever have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
As we mentioned earlier, inflation in this country continues to cool. BNN Bloomberg's Amber Kanwar has more on what that could mean for lending rates in tonight's business report.
Inflation in Canada grew at the slowest pace in 3 years. This as the price of food increased just 1.4%. That's the smallest increase since 2021. The so-called core inflation rate, which strips out volatile items like food and energy, has now declined for 4 months in a row and is inching closer to the Bank of Canada's 2% target. Lower inflation makes the bank more likely to cut lending rates as soon as next month. Now let's take a look at the closing market numbers. The Canadian dollar edging down around 73 cents US. Oil prices lost ground, closing at around $78 per barrel in the United States, while in Canada also closing lower, below $68 per barrel. Nevertheless, the TSX managed to eke out a small gain, adding just 3 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Amber Kanwar in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
For Taylor Swift fans, there's not much that would stop them from seeing the star in concert, except perhaps outlandish ticket prices.
But as the tour works its way through Europe, a number of fans from this country have found it's cheaper to actually go there to take in the show. CTV's Janice Golding introduces us to one such fan.
Welcome to the Eras Tour. Taylor Swift has been called the reigning queen of pop, and tickets to her Eras Tour are selling for a princely sum.
They're all over $2,000, even for the 500 level.
In North America, concerts sold out almost immediately, with tickets popping right back up on resale sites for astronomical sums. Check out StubHub today. Single tickets for the November 14th concert at the Rogers Centre start at $2,800 and range up to $20,000.
Hey cousin, what are we doing this weekend? I guess we're going to Stockholm.
And that's why Nadia Badok and her cousin Sarah decided to go to Stockholm, Sweden.
Because our flights were fairly inexpensive. We got a free hotel off of points, and our tickets, we ended up paying, I think it was like $125 Canadian.
In all, the duo spent about $2,000 each for tickets, hotel accommodations, and flights. That's less than the current price for a single ticket to a Taylor Swift concert here at home. But price wasn't the only factor.
We tried for 20 different cities in the United States.
Frustrated with their luck, the cousins decided to go online Friday afternoon and were shocked to find tickets to a concert in Sweden the next day. The trip to Stockholm, not so easy, however. 3 flights and 2 lengthy delays, which made them miss the first songs of the opening act.
So we purchased our tickets around 2 p.m. and we were at the Island Airport on a flight at 6 p.m. So we had 30 minutes to pack.
The trip was a whirlwind. In fact, given work obligations, the duo had no time for sightseeing, and the cousins flew back the very next day. Still, Badoc says she has no regrets.
100% worth it. Yeah.
In fact, Nadia and Sarah have already bought their tickets and are planning their next trip to see Swift in Edinburgh this June. Janice Golding, CTV News.
The newest man in one of the toughest jobs in all of hockey met with the media today.
Craig Berube says he's ready to get to work, but as for the specifics of what he's got planned, he's not saying just yet. CTV's Sean Leathong has more.
It may be the most pressure-packed job in hockey, but new Leafs coach Craig Berube says his decision to come here was simple.
You get a chance to coach Toronto Maple Leafs, for me, I'm going to jump on that.
Meeting with the media for the first time since Berube took the job, Leafs president Brendan Shanahan and general manager Brad Treliving say that past players would go through a wall for this coach.
Ultimately, character matters. Character matters. It matters with your team, and it matters most importantly with your head coach.
In Berube, the Leafs get a coach who's achieved the ultimate goal, winning a Stanley Cup in 2019 with St. Louis. He played more than 1,000 games in the NHL, including 40 for the Leafs, while amassing more than 3,000 penalty minutes, a style that he says is in line with what management's looking for.
Talking with Brad and Brendan in the conversations, we're on the same page, and I think that's important.
And that similar style could not be more apparent than in this 1989 fight between Berube and Shanahan.
And said, well, I guess you're not going to fight us guys anymore. And I said, let's go. And at the end of the fight, I said, you know what? He might have had it right. Maybe I should stop doing that.
Mark Masters from TSN noted how Berube kept focus even when Shanahan made light of their fight.
He was laughing and he was talking about, I had 100+ fights in my day. Craig probably had 200+. And then he looked over to him just to kind of see his reaction. And Craig was just laser focused, all business today, and I expect that's how he's going to approach this job.
Berube praised Leafs players and would not comment on any possible roster changes, as fans are hoping that Berube's business-like approach can cure the playoff failure of the past 8 seasons. But
that stuff's in the past, to be honest with you. I'm focused on now and the future, and I'm going to obviously bring my own style here and how we want to play the game.
And now that the Leafs have their man, fans wait to see how next year's team will play. So the Leafs have once again made a change. Last year, they brought in Brad Treliving as the new general manager. This year, bringing in Craig Berube as the new head coach. But fans want to see a change next spring with a win in the playoffs. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
Next year's RBC Canadian Open will have a new home near Caledon. The recently renovated North Course at TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley has been chosen as the host course for the 2025 Canadian Open. The announcement made today by Golf Canada and the PGA Tour. TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley will become the 38th golf course to host the Canadian National Men's Open Golf Championship in its 121-year history. It's only the 8th course to host the tournament since 1977.
And still with golf, just ahead not once, but twice, and on the same day and the same course. 2 golfers make holes in one. How this stroke of luck was celebrated and forever marked.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on Newstalk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
It's usually a once-in-a-lifetime shot in golf that not everybody gets. The elusive hole-in-one, but 2 golfers in Saskatchewan did just that, and it was on the same day on the same course.
The odds against that happening are astronomical. CTV's Allison Bamford has the story.
A start to the golf season Grady McDougall never imagined. The 16-year-old teeing off on hole 6, a par 4, 320 yards from the pin.
There's a huge hill middle of the hole. You can't see the green whatsoever, so I hit first, looked good. We thought maybe just left side of the green.
Turns out his ball landed a little more to the right than he thought.
The odd chance that it was in, I went and checked the hole and it was there.
The rare par 4 ace, only ever made once in the history of the PGA Tour back in 2001, with the odds of McDougall sinking it 1 in 6 million.
I had 3 of my buddies golfing with me and we were all pretty excited.
He has a history of defying the odds. The teenager scored his first hole-in-one at just 14 years old. But there must have been some extra luck on the links that night. Joining McDougall in the rare feat, his former gym teacher, Reed Whitrow, who also happened to be out for a round. Whitrow's ace coming on the 17th hole, his first ever.
Many people golf their whole life and don't get one, so I was pretty fortunate to get one. Like I said, year 4 or 5 of actually golfing consistently, I was pretty fortunate to get one that early.
Exciting moments that don't happen every day, let alone twice in the same evening.
With the hole-in-ones, Reed and Grady, they both got a little medallion from us.
Most golfers who score a hole-in-one are over the age of 50, giving both of these young players plenty of time to earn another one. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Wow.
You know, he's got a great stroke, and this is great weather for golf.
Oh, the weather's so... I'm sure people did lots of golf on the long weekend and today.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those times of year where you're getting ready for the summer season. We're tiptoeing in towards the warm weather, the heat, the humidity, but as you're out playing golf, enjoying the warmth, make sure you do it safely. Hydration and sunscreen are key. We're looking at a fairly clear night ahead of us, but things change a little into the day tomorrow. Right now, that humidity is still hitting. We're at feeling like 33 here in the city. It feels like 35 through Windsor. The humidex values tomorrow are verging on extreme, so take the necessary precautions. Even if it's not a brilliantly sunny day, you still need sunscreen. A little messy midday tomorrow, but it clears out and the heat is on right through to the end of the week.
Thank you, Jess. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zarida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.